Hello, everybody. All right. Welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Wednesday, Wednesday, August the 20th, 2025. Hey there, soon. Thanks for popping in. Hopefully, you'll enjoy the show here. So we have at least some people in here now. So, guess I'll get actually right into what we're going to be doing tonight. You know, just so yeah, so tonight now normally I would of course wait to see if people come in, but of course it looks like we already have some people in here. So I'm gonna probably try to get right into it as quickly as possible here. Of course, a friendly reminder to everybody: if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, that's to both my YouTube and my Rumble viewers. If you can help me out with that, see if we can get a few more friendly people to come in and engage with us. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, of course, um, let me go ahead and talk about what's on tap for tonight. So I have one article I'm gonna go over, maybe more depending on how fast we get through this particular article. Um, this one coming from that Park Place. Um, hashtag Batman trailer gets brutally roasted online with massive YouTube dislike ratio. Depending on how fast get to that, I might add another story in there to help fill up the time. Also, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap up. We'll get caught up on last night's NXT action. With of course NXT and TNA with WWE. We'll look ahead to tonight's AEW Dynamite, as well as, of course, just go over a quick reminder of what's going down this Sunday at Forbidden Door in England. And actually, a few in WWE is counter programming that, of course, with Heat Wave and all that. So, and then we'll wrap things up with, of course, this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started? All right, what am I doing? All right, so here we go. Aztec Batman trailer gets brutally roasted online with massive YouTube dislike ratio. Article published, according to this, actually this is from the comics, back on August 2nd, 2025. So about, probably about 2.5 weeks ago, I'd say. Article by Raven Redgrave. All right, so let's see what's going on here. Warner Brothers Animation has unveiled the first full trailer and poster for Aztec Batman Clash of Empires. And it's clear this isn't just another version of The Dark Knight. Rather, the animated film is rooted in the violent clash between Mesoamerican civilizations and European explorers. However, the trailer has proven deeply unpopular with fans as Aztec Batman. YouTube dislikes have exploded in response to these cultural changes to classic DC characters. So my guess is based on what our first paragraph is in reporting this. My guess is what they've done is they basically have taken the character of Batman, and instead of doing it in uh, noir-esque 1930s, Northeast America, Gotham is kind of based out of New Jersey, according to most sources. Instead of basing it out of 1930s noir-esque Northeast America, it looks like they've taken it back in time to the time of colonialism and and um, and pitting, of course, the European explorers against the natives of as they call it Mesoamerica. All right, so continuing on then. Let's see why the uproar. A Caped Crusader reborn in the Age of Conquest. Okay, at the heart of Aztec Batman is Yohali Corral, a young boy forced to flee his home after Spanish conquistadors kill his father, Totet Kazin, a respected village leader. The setting is the height of the Aztec Empire, a rich but volatile period in world history, and Yohali's journey leads him to Tenochtitlan, the great imperial city. So they do have some elements of classic Batman here. Basically, a child witnessing, the brutal murder of his parent, and how that affected him and affected his decisions later in life. Let's see. He transforms into a warrior of vengeance, trained in sacred arts and driven by a mission that echoes Bruce Wayne's, but is firmly rooted in his own culture. All right, so don't necessarily see the problem thus far. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily see the problem thus far. I mean, the only thing I can think of why people, well, I guess we'll have to read to find out, but the only thing I could possibly see is maybe people, complaining that maybe they might have tried to use Batman here as another way to push an agenda, and that might have I'm sure. But thus far, based on what they're saying, I don't necessarily see a problem yet. But let's see what more there is to be said about it. This isn't Gotham. There are no alleys or city skylines. Inside the world of Aztec Batman is one of sharpened obsidian blades, feathered headdresses, and political turmoil as Montezuma's empire teeters on the brink of collapse. Familiar faces recast in ancient shadows. The film doesn't merely transplant Batman into a new setting, but reinterprets his supporting cast through the lens of conquest and empire. Omar Chaparro portrays Yoka, a Joker-like figure whose madness plays out amid the chaos of colonization. Alvaro Morte, Money Heist, in parentheses there, takes on the role of Herman Cortez, envisioned here as a twisted version of Two-Face. I think I can start to see where people are going to probably have problems with this. I think, if I'm guessing right based on what I'm reading here, I think people are having the issue here might be that they're trying to use Batman as a way of lecturing people on the whole concept of colonialism and all that, and and again, and secondarily, of course, the whole whole race baiting aspect of it. But instead of it being race baiting against blacks, in this case, it's race baiting against Hispanics, those of Mesoamerican or Latin American descent. You know, um, melding the duality of the historical Cortez with the iconic traits of Harvey Dent. These characters' transformations suggest that Aztec Batman is less about literal one-to-one equivalence and more about thematic resonance. The Joker, for instance, became a trickster within the deadly theater of colonial warfare, while Two-Face's split persona mirrors the frustrated loyalties and moral contradictions of the conquistadors themselves. Yeah, they're they're trying to use this as a social commentary, which well, let's see what the actual backlash is, because now we're getting into that. It looks like this next part of the article here will actually touch right upon that particular issue there. Fan backlash, YouTube dislikes explode over historical controversy. Right, I need to check once in a while to see anybody. Oh wait, didn't this start? All right, something is amiss here. All right, there we go. I don't know why that happened. I didn't even realize that, but anyways. All right. All right, so here's okay. Fan backlash, YouTube dislike explode over historical controversy. Despite Warner Brothers Animation clearly wanting to position Aztec Batman Clash of Empires as a bold and culturally immersive Elseworlds reimagining, the trailer has received a wave of negative attention. As of August 2nd at 10:30 a.m., the YouTube trailer has just 1.3 thousand likes compared to 3.1 thousand dislikes, a lopsided ratio that highlights the growing fan frustration. Much of the backlash centers not only on franchise fatigue with cultural and racial reinterpretations, but also on the specific choice of setting the story within the Aztec Empire. Numerous YouTube comments have pointed out that the Aztecs practiced widespread human sacrifice, including cutting out hearts of living victims to appease their gods. Critics argue that reimagining Batman in this context risks glorifying or whitewashing a civilization historically associated with mass ritual killing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so in this case, because the culture is perceived as an evil culture, that's where the heat's coming from, as it were. And again, a friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. And if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer questions to the best of my ability. All right, so let's get back to the article here. This focus on real-world brutality has ignited debate over whether the creative liberties taken in Aztec Batman cross a line from alternate universe storytelling into historical revisionism. For many viewers, Batman's core identity as a symbol of justice feels at odds with a backdrop built on institutionalized human sacrifice, regardless of the film's intentions or aesthetic ambition. Hmm. Behind the scenes, a Mexican production with global reach. Aztec Batman is directed by Juan Meza Leon, best known for his work on Harley Quinn, and produced by Jose C. Garcia de Letona, Aaron D. Berger, Karina Schultz, and Fernando de Fuentes. Executive producers Sam Register and Tomas um, Yankelevich um, oversee the project, which is a collaboration between Warner Brothers Animation, Anima, and Chatron. The film is being released under the particular crowd label with a target premiere date of September 18th, 2025. So a little at this point from this date, a little less than a month away. While Elseworld stories are nothing new for DC, Gotham by Gaslight and Red Sun being notable examples, this project carries the distinction of being both a radical departure and a deeply researched homage. Um, it's a Mexican led production, not just in aesthetics, but in authorship, with creators drawing from native traditions, folklore, and the brutal realities of conquest. Hmm. Well, okay. The argument, though, argument I would make though here is that since since it is basically a Mexican production, it might be the case of they're giving it from the perspective of Mexicans, right? You know, um, as the Aztec Empire, as part of the Mexican, as part of Mexican history, they may have somewhat of a more favorable outlook. I mean, I don't know. I haven't really asked. I haven't. Obviously, this is the first I'm reading of this, so I don't. I haven't asked too many, you know, Mexicans or those of Mexican American descent. You know, what they think about the Aztec Empire, that part of their history. So I probably will need to um, do that and get a better idea. However, the fan base seems legitimately exhausted with the endless rehashing of classic characters and reboots to fit into other cultures, as evident by these lopsided Aztec Batman YouTube dislikes. If the ratio is anything to go by, this might this might not become a popular staple for DC fans. So okay, so I guess the bigger point here is the fact that that it's too much. Basically, there's too many movies coming out too quickly here, or too many projects coming out too quickly. People are just getting tired of it. Are you surprised by this explosion in Aztec Batman YouTube dislikes? Sound off in the comments below. Editor in Chief Marvin Montanaro contributed to this report. Um, Alrighty then. So a lot to take in there. I mean, I don't know if anybody out there, anybody in my audience was planning on going to see Aztec Batman, but so I don't know if people have anything they want to share in regards to that. Let me see now here. Let's see, we're at what, the 20-minute mark. Maybe I will try and find another story here. I'll try to find one more quickie to see if there's anything here before we move on to try this site. Of course, the site we're currently on, as it were. See if there's anything new that came up that I could do, let's say, in about like 10 to 15 minutes here. La 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 la. And we already did that one. I was thinking about doing those tomorrow. Yeah, I guess I'll just wait till tomorrow to do those. Let me see now. All right, here's an interesting. Let's see. Let me just see if this is. Yeah, that one might get us some. Get about the amount of time I'd want to take from it. Hey, Rick. So I guess you didn't have a chill stream last night. Thanks for popping in to say hi and all that. Alrighty then. So here's another little interesting little tidbit to go over. All right, so how the Silver Age Atom outsmarted modern DC's worst comics retcon, article by Avi Green, published earlier today. So let's see what Avi has to say about this now. See what's going on here. So Avi is saying here, I looked at the message board for collected editions, which grew out of a Marvel Masterworks fan site, and discovered this favorable thread dedicated to the Silver Age Atom, stories that makes interesting points about the characters, and with a logical awareness of whom the responsibility goes for how fictional characters are written and illustrated. So I guess now we're going to be referring to the message board that he's reading from here. Thoughts. Off the top of my head, the Spectre is the only other superhero I can think of who doesn't make an appearance in costume in his debut story. It worked in More Fun Comics number 52, and it works here as well. I credit this to bracket Gardner, Fox, Gardner unbracketed, Fox, realizing that the thought he's put into scientist Ray Palmer, his girlfriend lawyer Jean Loring, and the nature of their relationship deserves room to settle in. Palmer has credible reasons for keeping his fantastic discovery a secret from Jean, who has, unwittingly perhaps, instilled an inferiority complex in the brilliant young man, who naturally assumes that the high standards she expects of herself would also apply to him. Jean hasn't succeeded in law yet and won't marry Ray until she does. Ergo, Ray figures that until he's perfected his studies, he can't rightly expect to marry her. It doesn't stop him from trying, of course, but the realization is there, of course. No, there wasn't a chill stream. I was out for the and on my way home from an amusement. Oh, okay. Well, I hope you had fun. Since you decided to go to an amusement park, hope you had fun. Uh, and again, to my Rumble viewers as well. Again, if anything catches your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer questions to the best of my ability. Anyways, as we continue on with the article here, so not that this makes sense, Jean Loring, pushy or unreasonable, or not that this makes Loring pushy or unreasonable. She's simply a realist, withholding her hand in marriage to both encourage Ray to drive himself onwards and to push herself to make it in a male-dominated profession. So this is back in the 60s. This is of course when the Silver Age Atom made his debut appearance. Of course, this was even prior to the whole women's movement of the 70s. So to even push this kind of storyline would have probably been considered a little controversial at the time, but let's see. Let's see what more we can tell from this. You can tell that Fox is striving to present a real relationship here, based on the way that rather than focus on some quickly contrived explanation as to how our hero could climb those unscalable walls, he instead centers his attention on why such a sharp and intelligent woman as Jean Loring isn't asking for one. It's great seeing characters with such integrity handled by a writer who has no interest in compromising such virtue. And here's Avi's response to what we just read. Well, that's definitely an impressive and valid way of looking at things. And above all, it also refutes the repulsive blood libel identity crisis was built upon, which along with at least a few other publications at the time, distorted everything that had come before with a noxious retcon that made it sound like Jean was some kind of a gold digger who'd also been mentally insane for many years. Either way, the whole notion she'd be thrown into the dungeons of Arkham Asylum and essayed as a tabloid headline in Animal Man's household, which he dismissed in a horrific example of making it sound like all women who claim to be ARPed are routine liars, unparenthesed. Without trying to figure out if she'd been set up, only compounded the offense. Is, of course, Avi still speaking here. All right, so also note how the posters acknowledging a real life writer bears the responsibility for however a fictional character is portrayed, and even an artist, in parentheses here being Gil Kane, unparenthesed, has similar responsibilities. And to think that decades later, some vile ingrates would take apart everything they worked hard to establish in the first place, and all supposedly so they could perform quote unquote diversity pandering at the white character's expense, may have finally been reversed over a decade afterwards, but the damage, moral and otherwise, still remains, and we're still shaking off the negative effects it had all these years. Avi concludes here by saying, I'm hoping all these Adam stories featuring the Golden Silver Age protagonists, Golden Age Al Pratt, Silver Age Ray Palmer, respectively, will eventually be reprinted in DC Finest archives, and hopefully it will be done. For now, items like this should serve as examples everybody should ponder for why even small superheroes and their big worlds are well worth reading about. Very interesting. All right, then. So there we go with that. We're right on time. Let's see. 32. Yeah, all right. So, yeah. So I think that's good for now. Good for now here. Let's see. All right. So we're going to get ready to move on to the next part of the show, which is, of course, the wrestling wrap up. We're going to go back to last night, take a look back at last night's WNXT. Look ahead to tonight's AEW Dynamite, and then look also ahead to this weekend's, of course, Heat Wave and Forbidden Door events. So let me see here. Okay. All right. So first up, we'll look at last night's NXT. Last night's NXT was a somewhat of a special episode, as instead of coming from the Performance Center as it normally does, came from the Met Philadelphia in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Of course, it was on the CW with Booker T, Corey Graves, and Vic Joseph on commentary. The opening match of the evening saw a Philadelphia street fight between two former tag partners, Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura, in which Josh Briggs defeated Inamura in a rivalry that's been heating up on NXT the last few weeks, as Inamura was getting a shot at Obafemi recently for the NXT title, only for Josh Briggs to try to insert himself into it, and neither Inamura or Femi taking too kindly to that. And then the next match saw former North American champion Ricky Saints defeat Jasper Troy in just under 10 minutes. In a 6-woman tag match with Masha Slamovich serving as special guest referee, and of course, in a somewhat of a prelude to this weekend's three-way match for the TNA World Title, TNA Knockouts World Title, the tag team, the threesome of Fatal Influence of Fallon Henley, NXT and TNA Knockouts World Champion JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix defeated the Elegance brand of TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions Ash, Heather, and M by Elegance, as M and Heather defended the titles this past Sunday at Emergence, what they are now calling the Elegance Rule, what used to be known as what most people know as the Freebird Rule, in which when you have a team that holds the tag title, and you have a faction of three in it, any duo of the three can defend the title at any given time. And the main event was a number one contendership match to determine who would go on to face Obafemi, I believe, at Heatwave, in which you had TNA World Champion Trick Williams taking on Javon Evans, with Javon Evans getting the win over Trick, with a helpful distraction from TNA's TNA's new franchise player Mike Santana. And also there was a bit of a confrontation between Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe, leading up to their leading into their match coming up at Heatwave, as well as there was another segment involving Canadians, Ethan Page and Chelsea Green. Ethan Page, who's the current North American champion, and Americans Tavion Heights and Tyler May Steele, in which Ava came out to set up a tag team match, and we'll review all that in a few moments here. Let me just double check the date on that real quick before we move on to checking the so all right. So with that being said, of course, all right. So it's on the 24th there. So. All right. So let's also look at tonight's look ahead to tonight's Dynamite in preparation for this weekend's Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Of course, they'll be in England and all that. And again, a friendly reminder to everybody on both my Rumble and my YouTube viewership. You guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So tonight's Dynamite will be taking place from the OVO Hydro in Glasgow, Scotland, with, of course, Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, and Bryan Danielson on commentary. Matches already scheduled for tonight in a six-man tag match. New Japan's Hiroshi Tanahashi teams with Jet Speed of Speedball Mike Bailey and the Jet Kevin Knight. They take on the Death Riders of Claudio Castagnoli, John Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta. Of course, Marina Shafir will be in their corner. In the finals of the tournament, to determine who will challenge the Hurt Syndicate for the AEW World Tag Team titles at Forbidden Door. FTR of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, 3-time AEW World Tag Team Champions, will be taking on the team of Brodito of Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito and former AEW World Trios Champion Brody King. And also the main event set, Ring of Honor World Champion Athena, along with AEW TBS Champion Mercedes Moné, will team up to take on the team of AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm and Alex Windsor. Now, looking ahead, of course, to this Sunday, as a Sunday, there'll be, of course, you'll have Forbidden Door and Forbidden Door from AEW and Heat Wave from WWE. So let's kind of see if we can get a bit of a update on the cards for those. So on the main show for Forbidden Door, which is a co-produced event by AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, match is going to open up with the reuniting, of course, of Adam Copeland and Christian Cage taking on the matriarchy of Luchasaurus. Oh, Luchasaurus is making his return, apparently, and Kip Sabian, with Mother Wayne and Nick Wayne in their corner. Kyle Fletcher will be defending the TNT title against Hiromu Takahashi. Now all 4 slots apparently have been filled for AEW so in a 4-way match for the AEW TBS title, Mercedes Moné will be defending against Alex Windsor representing AEW, Persephone representing CMLL, and Bozilla. It's been announced that I guess Bozilla will be has been chosen to represent Stardom in that match. All right. Actually, I should probably have waited. I guess I should have waited till tomorrow because apparently there are some things that have happened on tonight's show that I may have inadvertently just spoiled. So I'm going to now going to go ahead now and guess what I can do. I'll actually go over the card for that tomorrow night. But let's at least take a look at what the WWE will be offering as a counter program, as they'll be having their Heat Wave event coming up this Sunday. Going up against so in a mixed tag match, which was set up by Ava on this past Tuesday's by the way, Heat Wave will be taking place this Sunday from the Lowell Memorial Auditorium in Lowell, Massachusetts. Opening match, we'll see a mixed tag match in which NXT North American Champion Ethan Page and Chelsea Green, who will be accompanied to the ring by her secret Hervis of Alba Fire and Piper Niven, take on the American duo of Tavian Heights and Tyra May Steele. In a triple threat match for the TNA Knockouts World title, JC Jane will be defending against Ash by Elegance and former TNA World Knockout Champion Masha Slamovich. In a number one contendership triple threat match for the WNXT Women's title, in a match that will be used to determine who will be the next, who will be JC Jane's next challenger for the NXT Women's Championship. Lola Vice will be taking on Jada Parker, and they'll be taking on Kalani Jordan. In a match for the NXT Tag Team titles, Tank Ledger and Hank Walker, Hank and Tank, will be defending against two members of Dark State as to be determined by then. As previously mentioned, Jordan Grace will be taking on Blake Monroe, looking to kind of get some revenge, as it were, on her for what she's been doing the last few weeks. And then Over Femi is set to defend the NXT title against Javon Evans. All right, so with that being said, hey, Bone, thanks for popping in. If you haven't already, of course, if you can help out by liking, sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, that being said now, let me go ahead and let's see now. So 46 minutes, all right. What we're going to do now, of course, is we're going to go ahead and now we're going to go ahead and move on to this day in each history. Today being Wednesday, and don't forget this is Hump Day, so people are getting over the hump. So everybody has a good rest of the week here. With that, with today being, as I said, Wednesday, August the 20th, 2025, let's take a look back at this day in each history. So, first off, I'm going to head back 40 years ago. As on this date, 40 years ago today, back in 1985, on this date in 1985, the first issue of New DN Agents from Eclipse Comics went on sale on this date back in 1985. It sold for 75 cents for 32 pages. The story was titled Backstory, as written by Mark Evanier, penciled by Mitch Schaller, inked by Will A. Blyberg, and lettered by Carrie Spiegel McCarthy. So on this date, 40 years ago today, the first issue of New DN Agents went on sale on newsstands on this date, or in comic shops on this date, in from Eclipse back in 1985. Now, of course, moving on to the year 2005. On to the year 2005, as it were. Let me see. On this date in the year 2005, Production IG was actually quite busy on the release front, as on this date back in 2005, 20 years ago today, Production IG released the following movies: Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, the movie, The Princess in the Birdcage Kingdom, and Holic, the movie, A Midsummer Night's Dream. So both of these movies were released in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2005 by Production IG. Of course, part of the respective. These are both stories, of course, that were based on mangas by Clamp, both very popular. So on this date, back in 2005, 20 years ago, Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, the movie, The Princess in the Birdcage Kingdom, and Holic, the movie, Midsummer Night's Dream, both premiered on this date 20 years ago today. And finally, on this date 5 years ago today, back in 2020, this date in 2020, Cartoon Network's The Fungies premiered on this date back in 2020 on Cartoon Network. The Fungies is an American animated comedy television series created by Stephen P. Neri and produced by Cartoon Network Studios for HBO Max. First season was premiered on HBO Max in 2 parts, releasing in August 20th and October 8th, 2020, respectively. The series made its linear premiere on Cartoon Network on June 4th, 2021. The series had concluded after its 3rd season that same year on December 16th. The series was removed from HBO Max in August 2022, among several other titles. The service is part of a cost-cutting measures at parent company Warner Brothers Discovery. Series creator Stephen P. Neri criticized the service for its decision. The show was also removed from digital purchases in October 2023. So on this date 5 years ago today, The Fungies premiered on Cartoon Network. So with that being said, I thank everybody for being here today. Let me see. Put on that. We'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. Of course, Rick Piper will be joining me for Historical Comic Retrospect on Sunday. So I hope everybody will come and catch that as well. With that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.